Hello, my name is Thomas Frank. I'm the Managing Director of Heidelberg Asia Pacific. Like anybody else, we at Heidelberg have to adapt to the new normal during and after the COVID crisis. While in the past we loved to have you in our showrooms and at our events, now we bring the showroom to you. In the following you will see two affordable, high-quality machines which can help you to further develop your business. The Daikata Izimatrix and the folder gluer Daiana Go from our partners MK Masterworks. If you are a commercial printer and your business with flyers, brochures or catalogs suffered during the crisis, think about expanding your offering by printing and converting cartonboard. There is a lot of short-run promotional packaging work around, not printed by multinational packaging giants, but waiting to be produced by flexible SME-type printers. Please have a look. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact our specialists in any of our countries in Asia Pacific.
Hi, I'm standing here in Hall 57, which is our commercial showroom. And there's a reason why we're here. In here we have a lot of commercial presses, guillotines, style folders, and cutting systems from Polar. And the reason why we're standing here in front of an Izimatrix 106 CS is we believe it's the perfect partner for the commercial printer, but it also goes into the packaging segment as well. Izimatrix 106, sheet size 1060-760, and the minimum size of 300 by 350. What we'd like to show you today is a job changeover, and we'll start off with a simple 6-up crash lock carton, and then we will change to a 2-up tray. And we'll do that step by step, and we will show you the processes that you have to go through, and hopefully we will convince you that this is then a fast make ready, a quick turnaround machine, ideally suited for the short run work. So as you can see, the machine behind me is running at the moment. We're running around about 6,500 sheets an hour. The maximum machine performance is 7,700 sheets an hour. As you see, the machine is very stable in production. We've got a good transfer from the feeder onto the table, and then an accurate sheet transfer throughout the machine. So I think at this point, we've seen the machine running on the particular job. Maybe it's time now we should think about changing it over. So Tobias, can you change over the machine for us? Whilst Tobias is changing over the machine, we'll just walk through it and we'll talk you through the stages step by step. As you see, we have a driven pallet lift on there, and what you'll notice is that the pallet actually sits on a complete platform, and that platform we have the ability to move 20 millimeters, and that gives us the assurance that we have got the pallet in the correct position in the machine. What you'll also notice going through here when we take the pallet out is we have a centerline system which starts at the feeder and goes all the way through to the delivery. Now you can clearly see the center line and also the side guides. There is also a pre-pile alignment system that we can also offer with this machine if you're running a lot of B2, B1 sheets or variable sizes that you want to pre-align before you put them in to the machine. Now one of the reasons we chose these two jobs is the different sheet size, and this would be one of the benefits of this particular machine in the adjustment of the feeder head itself. So we've got our pallet now in position. The suction head, obviously for the larger sheet, is much further back, but it's a very simple adjustment of that suction head. Simply lift the lever and the whole head moves. That's a lot of time saving in terms of adjustment of the sheet size. But what's important, we also have the fine adjustment, which Tobias is just doing now. And as you expect on a machine like this, you have the ability to adjust your forward suckers and your lifting suckers, both in terms of height and also the angle that we can pick up. The machine is ideally suited for anything from around about 90 grams worth of paper up to 2,000 grams and 4 millimeters of corrugated. So a complete wide spectrum of substrates. What Tobias is now doing is he's just adjusting the side guides. Whilst we're standing at the feeder, we also have a manual non-stop operation where we can slide the bars into the pallet, and we can also keep running if we had that longer run work. So we've set our feeder. What we'll do now is we'll now take the tools out of the die cutting station, and we'll show you a few facilities within the die cutting station itself. Okay, so we now come to the heart of the die cutter, the cutting station. So now Tobias will unlock the tools. The locking screws. Why do we use a 1mm plate? We use that for a fast make ready system. So the idea of this is that when you've run the job the first time, you put this back into the machine and you put it back in virtually the same position as last time, with the ability to micro adjust that, so your make ready time is greatly reduced. Historically, you might have bedded that onto a 5mm plate or a 4mm plate in this case, which you can still do. And what you would then do is you might use something like a Ceto creasing line, or you might use some Pertinax matrices, which you would then mount directly onto a 5mm flat table. With the 1mm plate, as you see here, this was the job. We've already made ready this job in the past. He puts the plate on. These are already made and set onto the machine. He locks the plate back onto the 4mm plate. And what you can see here on the side here is we have the ability to move that 1mm plate. Tobias, how much are we moving this? About 0.9 of a millimeter?
Yes.
About 0.9 of a millimeter, we can move that plate in both directions. And that's important because obviously what you need to make sure is your knife goes directly back into your creasing. So the 1mm plate's been adjusted. He'll slide that back in. He'll lock it back up again. He'll unlock the upper tool, which is where the actual die itself is mounted. Now here we have again, it's almost like a balancing plate to make sure that we have as much even pressure going across the full width of the bed as we possibly can, and it also protects the patch-up sheet. What do we mean by a patch-up sheet? Tobias, just while you're standing there, we'll just take this here. So a patch-up sheet makes sure that we have even pressure from front to back and from left to right. And we use the tape here to make up any differences that we have when we're trying to make sure we have the same quality of creasing and cutting across the full size of the sheet. And that's a common practice. That's not something unique to this machine. That's a common practice that you'll have to do with every job. And there are many reasons. It's not necessarily the bed of the machine that affects that. It could also be the quality of the tooling, wear and tear of the tool in certain areas. So it's a vital part of a make ready for a die cutter. What Tobias is now doing is the die itself, we have to make sure that during heat build-up, it doesn't bow in the middle of the die, so we have to positively lock it in with locking screws through into the bottom of the die. So we'll now turn that over, the chase over. And we have quick lock in the chase. Again, this is a perfect way of making sure that the die goes back in the same position as it was last time. And there are two things that here. We have the 2 points of locking it in, and we also have a centerline system. And hopefully you can just see that with this little block here in the middle. In the die board itself, there is also a small hole cut out, so we know that when we put the die in, it definitely goes back in the same position here. And with the clamping tools at the back here, we're putting the same amount of pressure on that die every time to lock it in position. Just before Tobias puts in the correct tool, I just wanted to show you something. We were talking about the notch in the wood. There's the notch in the wood. There's the die board going into it. Now obviously that die is a much smaller than the chase itself, and these will not meet the back of the die board. So what we have is we have the ability to slide in an adapter bar. So an adapter bar, as you can see, has teeth on the end. We have teeth in the back of here, and we can lock it in. If we have very small differences in die boards, for example, if you're running perhaps a 104 size machine, we have adapter bars that actually just fit here and lock in with the initial and the original quick lock devices. Now, as we use here in a perfect scenario, you would use a full size board. The additional cost of the wood is almost nominal, but it also means that you always have that equal pressure throughout the bed of the machine. And then what we need to do is place balancing knives in the die. So again, so we have a uniform spread of pressure across the full width of the sheet. So again, Tobias will now lock that die back into place with a couple of locating screws. There are a few tricks in this area you can do to help you again reduce your make ready times. You can make your own recordings on the patch up sheet, for example. The amount of cutting pressure you used the last time you ran the job. You can also write some additional information on there as you put the patch up sheet in here now. Again, you're working off a centerline system. Your patch up sheet has a centerline. The chase is also etched with a centerline. And literally a little bit of sticky tape just holds the sheet down flat and stops it bellying up in the middle. Then we put our Pertinax plate back on the top. We slide the tool back in. You heard then that was pneumatic clamping going on, and now he will just lock the tool in position. So now we've pretty much got our die set. We might have to come back to this area later on just to perform a fine adjustment of the cutting plate to the die, just to make sure our creases are exactly in the right position. We will now move along the machine and we will change the stripping tools. Okay, so continuing our make ready, we now need to address the stripping station. So Tobias now will raise the upper tool. Now on this machine we have quick lock, so with a simple, quick, easy release of the upper tool, we can then slide the upper tool out. Now what we are using here in this particular jobs are dedicated tools supplied by the die maker as a set. So you'd have your die, your patch up sheet, your upper and lower middle stripping tools. And these obviously have advantages because they're more accurate and precise, and they match exactly to the die profile that we've produced in the die cutting stage. So the upper tool is out. We will now take out the middle board. The middle board there is really used to support the sheet and to enable us to press the waste we want to take out through that middle board. Again, this is a quick lock device, so the operator can simply and easily remove those tools, ready for the next job. We'll show you the alternative option in a moment. When we've finished this particular section, we'll go over to the more conventional, or perhaps the old-fashioned way of doing it, which is with universal tooling. So he now slides the bottom board in. Adjust the backstop. And again, quickly locks it up and it's in position. Now that's a dedicated tool for each and every job. And now slide in the upper tool. As I mentioned before, in the feeder and also in the cutting station, we still work off of a center line system. So we know, again, that all those tools are perfectly in line throughout the machine. So he slides the upper tool in. A little bit of fine adjustment and locks it in place. And now lower the upper tool back down into position again. Shut the window. Now that section is pretty much set. In some jobs you might need bottom pins, but we'll cover the bottom pins again in a minute. But you still have the ability to slide a frame in the bottom of the machine mounted with bottom pins if you need that little bit of extra help in getting out perhaps very small pieces of waste or very intricate pieces of waste. So that's a stripping station. Two systems I mentioned before. One is dedicated quick lock devices, and the other is made manually with frames on perhaps on a pre-make ready table. You don't have to have a pre-make ready table. The machine comes standard with the frames and the tools, and the table is an option. But the table obviously is a more convenient area to mount both your upper pins and also your lower pins if you need them. And the lower pins obviously are spring loaded. You mount them in a frame on crossbars. You lay your sheet on the top and you can put the two tools together so you know that your upper and lower pins are in position. And you take those two frames, the upper and the lower, you take it out of the make ready table and then you slide them both in the machine. Make ready times obviously for this system is much longer depending on the complexity of the work that you've got to strip. And when you consider now when the cost of tooling is coming down, perhaps a saving is always, rather than the make ready time, you save it in terms of your up and running much quicker. So it's a combination. Now has to change obviously the pallet. We've reduced again the size of the sheet, so we need to change the joggers, and we'll show you the other facilities within the delivery, i.e. as Tobias is just putting in here the non-stop rack. As you'd expect, it's a full body safety guard there, so I can't step in there without stopping the machine. Put the pallet back in. Because we broke that safety curtain, the blue light was flashing and we can't start the machine again until we repress that blue button. So So also make sure that no one is in that part of the machine while someone else starts the machine. So pallet's now back in position. And we will now just show you one other item on the machine, which would be the tab inserter. Again, this might be very useful, particularly perhaps for commercial printers that want to make sure that they only send out a certain amount of work, so we can program within the computer how many sheets we want to run before we insert a tab, and we just keep repeating that until we run out that job. So it's a nice way of making sure that you deliver, whether it's 1,000 sheets or 10,000 sheets, you've got that option there to make sure that you've got an accurate count in there in stages of 50 or 100, whichever you require. So now the delivery is pretty much set in there. We might have to adjust some joggers when we get the first sheets through the machine. So we go back to the feeder and the feed table. And Tobias will bring the first sheet onto the table. And I'll just cross over. So what he's now doing, he has to adjust his side lays. This machine has both a left-hand side lay and a right-hand side lay, and both of those have the ability to push or pull. But what you don't need is you don't need tools to make that adjustment. So it's very simple, very quick to change to whichever system that particular job requires. And that's important, especially if you're running lightweight stocks and also corrugated and litho laminate work. The machine itself is equipped with 4 front lays, and they are selected on the screen, so we can choose which lays we want to use. Normally you would use certainly the outer 2 for the larger sheet size and perhaps the inner 2 for the smaller sheet sizes. But we can actually select that on the screen, so we're not restricted to that. It's not actually on this machine, but what we do have an option in this area is we have an option of adding a vacuum table, so we have a couple of vacuum belts in there. So if we want to suck the material down onto that table, we can, and that can be important for lightweight and also heavier weight stocks if you've got some curl in the board. The actual furniture on the table is a quick adjustment. As you can see here, it's a centralized adjustment. We can still adjust things individually, but 95% of the time you don't need to do that. On this machine you see a lot of these black pipes here. That's an anti-static device, so if you're running some sensitive surfaces, we have that option available as well. So now we've got our sheet, it's gone into the die cutting station, in through the stripping station, and we'll take a test sheet out at the back in the delivery. That's also a nice thing about putting the rack in, it's very simple to get it out. And he will now check the quality of what is actually run on the job. Now, to protect the die itself, he would have backed some of the pressure away, so he won't have cut all the way through the material. Otherwise we run the risk of damaging the make ready itself. But it looks pretty good for a first hit. So I think you're just going to make a couple of adjustments. While he's doing that, we've got a couple of tools to show you. Now, we said at the beginning, this is an ideal machine for the commercial printer. So commercial printers perhaps doing kiss cutting, they might be doing a lot of creasing work without doing a lot of cutting in there. So we can actually have some specialized dies. There's a good example of this one. It's a universal die with creasing tool, so there's your creasing knife in here, but as you can see I can mount that anywhere in that die itself. So I'm not restricted to having to buy a new die every time. I buy some creasing rule or a cutting rule and I can place that anywhere in this tool. Embossing. Because of the amount of pressure we can apply up to 260 tons of cutting pressure. The machine is also ideally suited for embossing, for high quality embossing. And what we have here is a universal embossing plate. So here I can screw into there my embossing blocks. Again, it's a universal tool, so I can put them pretty much anywhere I want to in that die. So I don't have to buy a specific die for every single job. And these are the sort of tools that we're developing with our partners to make sure it gives you the solutions that you need to make it a little bit more cost effective when you're doing multiple jobs in different substrates and for different applications. So certainly embossing, de-embossing, kiss cutting, creasing, so production wallets, cartons, paper jobs on here are all standard types of work that we can produce on an Izimatrix 106. So Tobias is obviously at the moment, he's just checking and making sure that machine is ready to run, and he should be ready with us any minute now. So whilst I've been showing you the tools, Tobias has just come back up onto the machine, and he will now make a couple of fine adjustments. So he will lower the upper tool to the middle tool, he'll lock it in position, and he will check obviously that they're perfectly married top and bottom. He'll now put a sheet onto the feed table. Take it into the cutting station, we'll cut it with a little bit more pressure on than the last time we did. We'll strip the waste. And we'll deliver it onto the non-stop rack. What he's got to do now, he's obviously got to adjust, because we've changed the size of the sheet in both directions, he's got to adjust the side joggers. So he just released here, pushed it in, and now he will lock it back up again. Does the same on the drive side. So quick, simple adjustments depending on the sheet size that you're running. And in comes the back. Okay, so that sheet we've gone through, we'll just run another one through. So now we're up and running at 6,000 sheets an hour. Just run a good handful of product. And he'll now take one of the test sheets out and make sure the quality is happy with it. So the racks come out. Wound the speed up a little bit more, so we're now up at 6,700. making a little bit of fine adjustment on the feeder itself, on the pallet alignment. So Tobias now has just taken a sheet to test now the quality, which looks pretty spot on to me. And it's also a good example of what we're actually taking out in terms of the stripping, as you can clearly see the areas that we've taken out. We can actually go a little bit further in certain jobs. Obviously we need enough material to draw it all the way through the machine, but you can take off the sides and also the back edge if required. So yeah, that's good to go. So we now ramp the machine up. So we've made our make readies, we've changed our tools, we've checked our quality, and we're now increasing the machine speed steadily. We're now up to just under 7,000 sheets an hour. And again, the importance here is stability. It's all very well trying to run the machine at full speed, but if it keeps stopping and starting, it really makes no sense. And it's the sheets on the floor that count at the end of the day. So the Izimät릭스 106 CS, also available just as a cutting machine as well without the stripping section, is an ideal machine and an ideal complement for your commercial print factory and also your packaging factories if you're looking to enhance what you already have. As we said at the beginning, 7,700 sheets a minute, high-speed production machine with quick make-ready times and good repeatability in your make-readies. So hopefully one day we'll get you in front of this machine here in Hall 57, the commercial showroom for Heidelberg, or perhaps in one of our packaging showrooms up in Hall 11. The machine, as I said before, is a Daiaana Go 85, and presently the machine is set up to run this straight line carton, reverse tuck straight line carton, pre-fold increase lines 1 and 3, and then we will change over during this presentation into a lock bottom box. So a nice lock bottom box, so a complete changeover. And the reason why we want to show you this is that we can then show to you that we can actually reduce your make ready times and minimize the number of parts that we put into the machine and also take out of the machine to complete the make ready. So what's so special about the Daiaana Go and what makes it part of the original Daiaana family of machines? For those that you are familiar with the old company Jagenberg that was purchased by Heidelberg, this machine has a long tradition in folding carton manufacturing. The machines were first designed in 1970, and really Heidelberg and Masterwork subsequently have taken this machine technology and moved it on to a much higher level. And this is what we're going to show you today. But the key part of this is that we haven't compromised on the quality, the build quality, and also the facilities that we have put into the machines. So you're not buying a cheap end machine with low technology, you're still buying very high end and very high quality technology in a Daiaana. So really, what did we target this machine for? The markets we were looking to really address would be the short run packaging markets, ideally perhaps pharmaceutical carton production where run lengths get shorter and shorter. So an ideal machine would be the straight line version of this particular Daiaana Go. And if you're working off a third crease pre-fold, we then have the option to keep the make ready times down to an absolute bare minimum. And we are literally talking minutes then. But it was also important to address bigger, wider markets. So certainly the markets in the Asian region, and also to find a solution for commercial packaging, commercial printers looking to develop a market into packaging, and also looking to have a machine that will cross over the borders between a folder gluer and an actual folding machine. And this is where it becomes interesting, perhaps for you guys, if there are any of you online, is to look at some of the sample cartons that we can now run. So typical samples that we can run down the machine over and above your standard straight line and lock bottom cartons would be some simple bottle carriers, some presentation folders. You see here chip scoops, so addressing the convenience food market. A little bit different, some button pouches or collar stiffeners for shirts. This is obviously a lighter weight stock, almost verging on paper, and document wallets. And then the more conventional carton styles of double wall, Euro slot hanging cartons, CD and pocket wallets, some sleeves, tapered cartons, and also miniature cartons. When we talk about miniature cartons, did you know that on all Heidelberg folder gluers, we can go down to the minimum size of 45. So that literally will take a pencil in the box. So that's 10mm panels. And whether it's the top end Dyna X or also the Dyna Go that we see in front of us here, the machines have the capability of going to down to all that minimum size. So as we have so many features we would like to cover, I think, Stefan, if we can ask you to change the machine over. So just before you do, if we can just have a quick look at the line running the straight line carton. So I'm just going to take one out the top. So on the straight line carton, we're pre-folding, so we literally pre-fold the first crease. We also pre-fold the third crease. And then in the final fold section, we're folding crease lines 2 and then crease lines 4 to produce our standard straight line carton. I think the important thing is, and some of us get hung up over the belt speed of a machine. The belt speed of this particular machine is 250 meters a minute, with the option of extending it to 300 meters a minute. But in reality, how many cartons, if you're running folder gluers, and only a small percentage of you are, actually run anywhere near those kind of belt speeds anyway? So on a lot of carton styles and a lot of boxes that we will run, we will get nowhere near the maximum belt speed. The speed there was something like about 200 meters a minute, and you're producing somewhere around about 50 or 60,000 cartons an hour. So we now will change over to the lock bottom carton. And while we're doing that, I will explain a little bit about the machine and some of the features within the machine, trying not to get in Stefan's way. So we'll start at the feeder, and we start at the general machine in total. We talked about the solid side frames, and this is a good example. This is where we haven't compromised: the quality of the side frames, the quality of the feeder, which obviously is the heart of the machine. If you can't feed a carton in squarely and deal with it properly, then there's no point in starting the folding anyway. So the feeder is built to the same levels as the Dyna X's, the top end machines that we build. That also includes the type of feeder, the feeder belts, the feeder drives, and the ability to move the belts as we run larger or smaller cartons. Very simple, quick release facilities. And also probably pretty much unique now on any machine, we also have the ability to remove feeder belts throughout the whole machine. Sorry, feeder belts or any belt throughout the whole machine, not the feeder belts. And these we do with a simple 2-button adjustment here, and we unlock it, we loop the belt off, and we can put the belt on. We also see here that we have a vacuum assisted feeder, which is an option on the machine. So if you want to move the vacuum belt from one carrier to the next, that's also possible to do very simply. Other nice facilities, we have very quick adjustment of the pressure of the feed gate. We have a feed gate which we can actually turn over, and it has different profiles to help to reduce any marking issues that we might encounter. We then come into an aligning station. Now the aligning station is something that's really been developed over the last 10 or 15 years in folder gluer technology. And this is really where we are now seeing a big benefit in reducing make-ready times from the feeder. And we're also seeing far better quality results. So we know that every carton coming out, we either square it either to the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the machine. We can also adjust the pressure still. Just by clicking over these little clips, we can knock the pressure off the rollers. We also have an aligning bar here, which we have the ability to make an adjustment of 50 millimeters. And that means that we can move the top carriage away from any aperture or window that's in the carton, again to help with the quality and to reduce any marking issues. We come into the pre-fold section. On a straight line carton, we're really using it only to pre-fold the first and third crease line. You can see here we have the first crease pre-fold plow, which also we house the code reader, which locks literally straight into here, so we can read the carton in its most stable position. As we're now changing over to lock bottom, we also use this section to mount our lock bottom hooks. So you're using the final half of the pre-fold also as a lock bottom module, if you like. And the first half of the pre-fold, we can pre-fold up to around about 100 degrees of the third crease pre-fold. Other important items on the machine. As you'll see, this is a standard carriage. This is the same carriage as in the Daiaana X's and the Daiaana Smarts, the high-end machines. And the beauty of these carriages, they're very light in construction. The profile on the top enables us to mount any lock bottom hooks or any brackets anywhere down the machine that we want to. All the bearings are running in one direction, so we're not fighting the material. We're not putting added strain on the material because we are making sure that the path is as smooth as possible, but also that we have control of the blank at all times. On the ends of the carriages, we have spring-loaded bearings, and that means we are also able to run corrugated material as well as some heavy material and also lightweight paper stocks without having to adjust all the spring tension all the way down the carriages. The pre-fold section is pretty much a two-carriage section with split carriages, so we have a little bit more flexibility in what we can fold. And as Stefan comes down the machine and just making some adjustment, if we can just wind back here, Clarissa, that'd be great. Stefan's just actually manually adjusting the carriages into position. Now these are digital indicators, so we can record the data that we set the job previously and manually then wind the carriages into the correct positions. And this obviously is a way of speeding up your make ready and making sure that your base of your make ready is consistent. So you don't start at one end of the machine and by the time you get to the other end, your carriages are out of position. So this is a good way of checking and making sure that you have a good stable production and reduce your make ready times. As we come down here into the bottom glue pot, again, this is a bottom glue pot that's designed for the top end machines. So we're using the same pot design, the same scrapers, the same wheels. And that's important if you have other Heidelberg machines, you have compatibility across the models. So the same glue wheel will fit in all of our models of machines. The inverted glue bottle, if you're running a lot of larger volume work, we can also run off a reservoir tank. And above the glue pot, we have a glue application system, which also can be linked into quality control, the code reader I was speaking about earlier, and also the glue application control systems that you can have on the glue guns themselves. This particular system is from HHS, but we also work with the likes of WH Leary or also Nordson, would be probably the three major suppliers to our pieces of equipment. Stefan, just before you put that into the machine, this is the lock bottom hook. Again, it's identical to the lock bottom facilities that we put into the major and the bigger machines. We can adjust the spring tension here, so you can adjust that on the run. And other nice little facilities, like we have a rubber buffer here, so you don't get the noise from the hook as it rides down. So the machine is also a little bit more user-friendly. And when we mount it, we mount the complete components. We don't want to be building them as we put them into the machine. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. Sorry, Stefan, I stopped you. You can mount that anywhere down that carriage where you want to put it if you're doing a special carton, maybe with a simple pickup flap or maybe a Euro slot. And your carton then will dictate where you can make these folds, but the machine doesn't really dictate where you have to make those folds. As we come a little bit further down the machine, you'll notice all the way down the machine, there are cutouts in the machine. And this enables my operators to stand in the machine safely, because obviously we've guarded the machine properly in the first place, as is covered by the GS mark down here. But it stops me having to go around the machine to make my make ready complete. So it's very easy for my operator to get in there and make his adjustments. The final fold section is a traditional, really Jagenberg, Heidelberg technology, where you have a very positive left before right hand folding principle. So at no point do we lose control of the blank. You also see the wrap of the belts, the belt tensioner here. It's a one-hand tensioner. So it's very simple to change the belt and also then obviously to retension it. You have a variable speed pulley down here. The beauty of this particular machine is that we actually wrap the belt virtually the whole circumference of the pulley. And then with this lever here, we have the ability to change the belt speeds on the left and the right hand side. So if we do have any issues, perhaps we're running a little bit of corrugated, and because of the flute direction, we start to roll a little bit in the flute, we have the ability to influence how we can make that final fold in the end. Also have a nip section here, so we can actually crease a little bit the crease lines that we've folded. And then before we get to the trombone and the delivery, we have obviously the control panel here. So what Stefan has probably done, he's come down here and he's looked at the past jobs he's run, and he's going to do that for me anyway. He selects the job, so he's previously stored this information, and now he's going to send the information down to the machine. So what this now tells me is where I'm aligning. So I have a left and right hand alignment. I also have pre-fold. I also then know the feed length of the carton. So my feeder then is automatically set for that feed length. I then have an overview of the machine section by section. So I can also set my marker position, how strong I want to kick out a carton out of line. So if I want to kick the 50th carton, I can determine how far I kick it. We don't want to kick it too far on a lock bottom carton, otherwise we alter the pressure of the individual cartons. We can also set here plus minus the shingle, so we can increase the speed of the belt to try to get us a more accurate shingle. The trombone section is nice and long, and there's a reason for that. It's because we need some space to be able to eject the carton out of line. So in here we have a linear ejector. So the carton, if it's detected as a bad carton with the code reader, or also with a glue fault, we can pull the correct carton out of the stream. It goes into a bin on the side of the machine. The delivery conveyor, if we have the start-stop function available, will automatically stop the belt for a very small amount of time to make sure our shingle maintains a consistency and we don't again have issues with glue and glue bonding. So I think Stefan is pretty much there or thereabouts. He's just coming down to the stacking and the delivery and the conveyor. So this is a standard delivery conveyor. There is also options to have the extended version, which gives you another couple of meters. We also have on the top here a soft rubber belt, and this really makes up the differences in the thicknesses of a lock bottom carton, where on one side you have, or two sides, you have multiple layers of board, and in the middle you only have 2 layers of board. So that helps to make sure we get a good even glue pressure throughout the delivery conveyor. So I think the important thing really again to emphasize is we've now done the make ready between a straight line and a lock bottom carton. And really the number of elements that Stefan has put into the machine and likewise also taken out of the machine to achieve that make ready, we've kept it to a bare minimum. And when we have to put components in, we try to put complete units in. And I'll show you a couple of units in a moment. We'll just let the machine run for a while and we'll have a look at how we're running. So again, we're now running at 130 meters a minute. We're running around about 30,000 cartons per hour, but it's nice, stable production. You can see in here, and here, this is where our lock bottom hooks, and also down here, where our lock bottom hooks are picking up the relevant panels and making sure that we have a pre-fold of the third crease as well. So going back to some folding elements, on the board here we have, this is a typical shadow board where we can store our parts to make the life of the operator a little bit easier so he knows where those parts are. Here is a folding module. These are the items that have been designed to, again, to speed up the make ready. So just by mounting these along the side of the carriages, we have a complete folding module. So we have a left-hand model and also a right-hand version. And we can also have the same in a Z-fold, so we can make almost like a capacity in certain document wallets, for example. We looked at a standard hook. This is a special components. This would be for small lock bottom cartons. So we have a very small hook, so we can get the hook very close to the carriage for the small panels. And there's the plow. Again, it's a small plow. And we spoke about a code reader earlier. This is the code reader, which mounts directly into the pre-fold plow. And that means that we can make sure that every carton in the machine should actually be in the machine. And finally, for those customers that want to run perhaps some document wallets with a buckle plate, or maybe just a large panel they need to fold from the front, we also have the buckle plate attachment that mounts in the machine here. Again, as I said before, because we have the ability to move carriages a little bit in the machine, it enables us to create space to make special foldings. So that was really a very brief summary of some of the highlights of the machine. Hopefully you found that useful. As we said before, the machines sit in the showrooms, pretty much are available for demonstrations all year round. And that will be from the Daina Go, the Daina Easy, the Daina Smart, and also the Daina X, as well as some peripheral equipment, some packers and pre-feeders.
I'm very glad that you are still here with us. In summary, both MK Izimetrix and Daina Go are able to process multiple applications on different substrates, reducing your make-ready time to do 1 or 2 more jobs a day or even per shift, improving output without compromising quality. Very user-friendly to learn and operate, and of course, very safe to use and serviced by Heidelberg. For production efficiency, please contact Heidelberg office in your country. Thank you for watching the video.